Every bold declaration, every confident speech, every unfinished dream. Little by little, he understood why people had stopped taking him seriously. Not because they disliked him, because words lose their value when actions never follow. That evening, back in the workshop, Elias worked later than ever before. As the lantern flickered, he stepped back to admire the sculpture. It was nearly complete. The figure emerging from the marble was unlike anything he had imagined months earlier. Its face carried quiet determination. Its posture reflected courage without arrogance. Its eyes seemed fixed on a distant horizon. The old sculptor entered the room. He looked at the statue for a long time. Then he turned toward Elias. "Tell me honestly, if the entire city had watched you carve this every day, would it have become the same sculpture?" Elias didn't answer immediately. He remembered the fear of being judged, the temptation to impress people instead of improving, the pressure to make every step look perfect. Finally, he shook his head. "No, I would have carved for them, instead of carving for the truth hidden inside the stone." The old man smiled. "Exactly. The world teaches us to perform, but mastery is born when no one is clapping." He gently brushed marble dust from the statue's shoulder. "Never confuse attention with achievement. They are rarely the same thing." Those words settled deep inside Elias's heart. He realized that all his life, he had mistaken admiration for progress. People admired his dreams, but admiration had never built anything. Only quiet, consistent work could do that. On the first morning of spring, nearly a year after the journey had begun, sunlight streamed through the workshop windows. Golden rays illuminated the sculpture from head to toe. Elias laid down his hammer. He walked slowly around the statue, searching for one final flaw, one final detail. He found none. After hundreds of silent evenings, thousands of careful strikes, and countless moments when quitting seemed easier than continuing, the masterpiece stood complete. He didn't cheer. He didn't shout. He didn't run into the city to announce his success. Instead, he closed his eyes, placed one dusty hand upon the cool marble, and smiled. It was the smallest smile anyone had ever seen, yet it carried more joy than all the applause he had spent years chasing. Because this time, his pride had not been borrowed from other people. It had been earned. The old sculptor quietly stepped beside him. Without saying a word, he placed a hand on Elias's shoulder. Both men stood in silence. Neither needed to speak. The stone had already said everything. The following morning, the old sculptor opened the workshop doors before sunrise. Cold mountain air drifted inside. Golden light slowly crept across the stone floor until it touched the finished sculpture. For several moments, neither man spoke. The masterpiece stood before them in complete silence. It needed no explanation, no speech, no announcement. Only time had created what words never could. The old sculptor finally smiled. "I believe," he said softly, "it is ready." Elias looked at the sculpture one last time. A year earlier, he would have rushed into the city shouting for everyone to come and admire it. Now, he simply nodded. "Let's take it." With the help of several workers, they carefully placed the statue onto a heavy wooden wagon. The journey down the mountain was slow. The wheels groaned against the rocky road. Every bump made Elias hold his breath. He wasn't afraid people wouldn't like it. He was afraid the months of patient work might be damaged before anyone had the chance to see it. By midday, they reached the center of Ashmore, the same square where another block of marble still stood. The forgotten stone was scarred with cracks. Children had carved their initials into it. Moss covered one side. The old wooden sign leaned sideways, barely hanging from its rope. People walked past without even looking. The old sculptor pointed toward it. "Leave it exactly where it is." Then he gestured toward the wagon. "Place your sculpture beside it." The workers carefully lowered the finished statue onto a stone platform. A cloth still covered it. No one knew what stood beneath. Curiosity spread quickly through the marketplace. Merchants stepped outside their shops. Children stopped playing. Travelers gathered around. Within minutes, a crowd surrounded the square. Whispers filled the air. "What is it? Who made it? When did this happen? I've never seen anyone working on it." Even Rowan pushed through the crowd. He looked at Elias with surprise. "You've been hiding something." Elias only smiled. "I've been working." The old sculptor stepped forward. He raised one weathered hand. The square became silent. Without a single dramatic word, he slowly pulled away the cloth. A gasp swept through the crowd. No one spoke. No one moved. The marble seemed almost alive. The flowing robes appeared to move with the wind. The figure's eyes carried quiet determination. Its outstretched hand seemed to invite every person standing there to become something greater than they were yesterday. Every tiny detail reflected extraordinary patience. Children stared with wide eyes. Merchants removed their hats. Artists stepped closer in disbelief. One elderly woman quietly wiped tears from her face. She whispered, "It feels as though the stone has a soul." For several long moments, the city forgot how to speak. Finally, applause erupted across the square. Not polite applause, not forced applause, the kind of applause that rises naturally when people witness something truly remarkable. Rowan turned toward Elias. "When did you make this? I never saw you working. You never told anyone." Elias looked at the sculpture before answering. "I wasn't building it for applause. I was building it because it deserved to exist." The word surprised even him. Months earlier, he could never have imagined saying them. Because they were true, one young apprentice stepped forward. "Master Elias, how can I become as skilled as you?" The crowd became quiet again. Everyone expected him to reveal a secret technique. Perhaps a special tool. Perhaps a hidden talent. Instead, Elias walked toward the forgotten marble block that still stood nearby. He gently brushed away years of dust with his hand. "This stone," he said, "was announced before it was touched. Everyone imagined what it would become. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone expected greatness." He looked toward his own sculpture. But this one, it grew in silence. Only after it became strong did the world meet it. He turned back to the crowd. "So, if you truly want to build something meaningful, protect it while it is small. An unfinished dream is like a small flame. If too many hands reach toward it, the wind they create can put it out." The crowd listened carefully. No one interrupted. In the months that followed, something unusual happened in Ashmore. People noticed that Elias no longer spoke about future projects. If someone asked what he was creating next, he simply smiled. "You'll see when it's ready." At first, people found his silence mysterious. Then, they began to respect it. Young apprentices stopped boasting about what they hoped to create. Instead, they spent longer hours in their workshops. Shopkeepers stopped announcing businesses they hadn't yet built. Farmers quietly prepared their fields before speaking of harvests. Even children learned a simple lesson. Instead of telling everyone what they planned to become, they started becoming it. Slowly, the spirit of the city changed. Less talking, more building, less promising, more doing. Ashmore became known not only for its beautiful sculptures, but for its people. Visitors often wondered why everyone seemed so focused, why there was so little boasting, why success appeared almost effortless. They never realized the answer had been quietly spreading from one workshop, the workshop that never made a sound. Years passed. The old sculptor grew older. One peaceful autumn afternoon, he invited Elias to sit beneath the same pine trees where they had first hidden the marble. The air smelled of cedar and fresh rain. The forest was calm. The old man looked toward the distant city. "You no longer need me." Elias smiled gently. "I still need your wisdom." The old sculptor laughed. "No, you've discovered something greater. You've learned to trust the process." He pointed toward a tiny oak tree growing beside the path. "I planted that acorn many years ago. No one celebrated it. No one applauded. No one even noticed. But look at it now." The oak stretched proudly toward the sky. Birds rested among its branches. Travelers found shade beneath it. Children played around its roots. It had become valuable, not because someone talked about it, but because it quietly kept growing. The old sculptor looked at Elias one final time. "Never chase recognition. Chase excellence. When excellence becomes your habit, recognition eventually finds you." Those were among the last lessons Elias ever received. Many years later, after the old sculptor had passed away, travelers still visited Ashmore to admire its masterpieces. Guides proudly spoke about the famous artist Elias. Some asked how he became so successful. Others wondered where he found such extraordinary inspiration. Few people knew the truth. His greatest masterpiece had never been carved from marble. It had been carved inside himself. He had transformed from a man addicted to admiration into a man devoted to quiet discipline. And that transformation changed everything. Now let me ask you something. How many dreams are living inside your heart today? How many goals have you announced before you've taken the first real step? How many times have you mistaken excitement for progress or applause for achievement? Remember this. The world doesn't reward intentions. It rewards completed work. A seed doesn't become a tree because people admire it. A sculpture isn't created because someone talks about it. A life isn't transformed because a dream is spoken aloud. Every meaningful achievement begins the same way. Quietly, behind closed doors, far from applause, far from expectations, far from distractions. If your dream is still young, protect it. Feed it with discipline. Strengthen it with action. Let your habits become louder than your promises. Because one day, the results will speak with a voice so powerful. You won't have to. People will see your work. They will feel your growth. They will admire your success. And they'll wonder how you did it. They'll never know that the greatest part of your journey happened in silence. So the next time you're tempted to announce your next big idea, pause. Take one small step instead. Then another. And another. Build quietly. Improve patiently. Stay consistent. Because the strongest dreams are not the ones that are heard first. They're the ones that survive long enough to become reality. And when your masterpiece is finally complete, you won't need to tell the world who you've become. Your work will introduce you. The loudest success is often built in complete silence. The end.